have maybe a few big sighing breaths. So Jan, I'm going to mute everyone, but Jan, particularly just if you're feeling a bit frantic, some big exhalations. Settling down. And it might, you know, if you are feeling, I know my head was feeling quite busy last night. If you are feeling a bit busy, then it might take a little bit of time to settle, but we're going to be moving and yeah, moving on our backs. And hopefully the movement will help us just to arrive in our bodies if we are feeling busy. So perhaps I think it would be good to start moving with that in mind. And so organize yourself so you're lying with your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor. Yes, taking your socks off, Jan. I don't think it's quite nice and sunny today, so I think you'll be all right without them. So just start, so feel the contact of your feet on the floor, feel the back of your pelvis on the floor, let your shoulders rest back onto the ground. And then, oh yes, Sally as well, we seem to have a lot of socks going on today. So when you've removed your socks, then you can start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And just see, I mean, you of course can keep your socks on if you like. I was just, yeah, it's a bit warmed up a bit today. So letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left and just seeing how that feels in your body. And I think there's sometimes we just have all these rather inexplicable little perhaps aches or pains. Yesterday I was one of my hips was feeling all sort of slightly twingy. I couldn't really work out what that was. It's gone today. So just, yeah, starting to have a sense of your body today. And so perhaps once or twice more, tilting your knees in this position. And then you're going to pause in the middle. And you're going to take your feet a bit wider apart. So they're as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And then see how it feels to do this same movement here, tilting the knees to the right and to the left. And as we're doing this quite early on, just go easy with it. And it might be that you want to keep on tilting the knees from side to side. But if it feels comfortable, if it feels okay for you right now, you could try letting the knees come all the way down on one side and have a few breaths there. But again, if you've got any cushions to hand and it would be helpful to slide a cushion under one of your knees, you could do that, depending how it feels. So when we're doing this one with the feet a bit wider apart, and particularly when we let the knees come down to one side, it does tend to get us moving a little bit more into the hip joints. And you also might like to roll your head in the opposite direction to your knees. So this is when your knees are staying down on the floor. Just let the head roll in the opposite direction so that shoulder stays settled on the ground. And you just have a few breaths. So if you're still on the first side of your knees staying down on the floor, swap onto the second side and have a few breaths. Just maybe 3 cycles of breath, letting the knees drop down towards the floor. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. Noticing how this feels in both of the legs, in the bottom leg where we're asking the inner thigh to lengthen out, and in the top leg where it's more across the outside of the hip joint and the pelvis. And then from here you're going to come back to the center and you're going to fold both your knees into your chest. And just there, maybe hold around the top of your knees for a breath or two. You could rock a little bit from side to side if you like. And then keep your right knee folded into your chest and bring your left foot to stand on the floor. And then what you're going to do here is have a little play around with taking your right leg up towards the ceiling and There's two ways you could do this. So you're going to use your hands to catch onto your leg. So you could keep your right knee bent and you could take the lower leg up. So it's a bit more vertical. And you could catch onto your shin, your ankle, your toes. It really depends what works for you. And you could also try lengthening out that top leg. And in which case, if you're straightening the knee and lengthening out the top leg, you maybe catch your hands around the back of your thigh, or it might be around the back of your calf. Some of you might find you can catch your toes. And just do a little bit of playing around with that leg, both with the knee bent and with the leg long. And just seeing, yeah, how it feels today. Seeing where you can catch your foot, what feels comfortable. How does the back of your leg feel? When you straighten your leg, it's nice to do a bit of circling into the ankle or pointing the toes, pointing the heel. And then you can, from here, you can move on to lengthening out the left leg on the floor. And when the left leg's on the floor, and you can think about the left leg being quite heavy, you could then explore the right leg coming down towards the right side, towards the floor on the right side of your body. So either with the knee a bit bent or with the leg longer, what's it like to explore taking your leg out to the side? And there's a couple of different ways you could do this. So if your knee is very bent, you could be exploring it's a bit like when we come into a lunge and we come onto the inside of our legs, you could be exploring with the knee bent, taking the knee down towards the floor, near to your armpit. Or it could be with the leg straighter, and it's more that one where we're rocking the leg out to the side, catching somewhere onto your leg. And again, it's where can you hold onto your leg? Yes, onto your trouser leg, Sally, is absolutely fine. But there's something quite nice about making this contact between your hand and your leg, which is why at the moment I'm not using belts for any of these things, because I think actually if we can hold on to ourselves, it's a bit more, I just think it's nicer. Okay, good. So when you can do a little bit more of this, but when you've had enough, maybe lengthen both legs out on the floor and just see how it feels to lie with two long legs on the ground. And feel the length of your body supported by the ground. Feel the movement of the breath within you. Good. And then come to let both knees bend, stand both feet on the floor and fold your left knee into your chest. So we're going to do the same things on this side. So start off with, you've got your left knee folded into your chest. Start off with those explorations of how is it to keep the thigh close to your chest, to orientate the sole of your foot towards the ceiling. So you're coming into, I suppose, the lower leg is becoming more vertical, but the thigh is still resting on the chest. Seeing where you can catch onto your leg or your foot, and then lengthening out that leg. Maybe holding around the back of your thigh. Can you hold around your calf? Where can you take your hands on your leg? That's nice. So as much as this is lengthening out the leg or bending the knee, with, obviously we're easing into the hamstrings in the back of the leg. It's also about this exploration of where can we catch onto our leg? Where does it feel nice to hold? How does that help us have a more awareness of our leg by taking our hands there? And when you're ready, you can, if you want to, you can lengthen the right leg out on the floor. And so you can do these same movements still, the sort of knee bent, knee straight, but you can also start to play around with a little bit more, taking that leg out to the side. That's it, yes. And again, it's just make it exploratory. Bye, girls. Just packed the children off to the park. It's far too nice to be indoors. Good. So just a couple more times. And so remember, there's those options, that sort of Having your leg long, supporting the leg. It might even be, if you're taking your leg out to the side, you're supporting your hand under your knee. Your elbow could be on the floor. Or there's the one where it's a bit like we're in a lunge on our back, taking the knee down towards the floor near to our armpit. And then again, very nice. Beautiful. And then again, when you've had enough, just lengthen both legs out on the floor. You could roll the legs a little bit. You could bounce the knees. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. So have one more cycle of breath lying long, feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath leave you, sensing the length of your body supported by the ground. And then from here, once more, bend both knees, stand both feet on the floor. And come back to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. That's nice. And just see how that movement feels now. And perhaps after doing some other movements, if you were feeling a bit busy at the beginning, perhaps coming back to this, maybe you're better able to settle into feeling this movement. And do this a couple more times and notice how the weight is shifting side to side across the back of your pelvis. Because then what I'd like you to do is settle your feet down and come to tilting your pelvis on the floor. So the one where we tip our pelvis away from our head and the lower back arches. And then we tilt our pelvis towards our head and the lower back flattens out. That's it. So see if you can find these little tilting movements of the pelvis and see how they feel today. So these little movements can be very revealing in terms of how does our lower back feel? How much movement have we got around the center of ourselves today? And you can stay with these if they feel helpful, doing a few more. Tipping your pelvis towards your head, tilting your pelvis away from your head. But when you're ready, and if you like, you can take from tilting the pelvis towards your head, so the tailbone tipping off the floor, you can go a bit further into that one and come up and down through 2 or 3 very easy bridge poses. And as you sink into your feet and your pelvis comes away from the floor and some of your vertebrae, think about sending your knees forwards over your footprints. So you get this feeling of opening out a little bit through the front of the hip joints. That's nice. Just really to move the body in a different direction to all the things we were doing, catching our legs, where we were closing up through the front of the hip joint. Good. So 2 or 3 times rolling up and down in your bridge pose, and just keeping it easy. And then the next time your pelvis comes back down onto the floor, let your pelvis settle and feel heavy. And bring your hands to the front of your body. And come to feeling a few cycles of breath moving through you. So now that we've moved a little bit, how does it feel to gather the attention into your attention into your breathing, and to feel the front of your body responding to your breath? So the feeling of widening, the belly maybe rising as you breathe in. And then that feeling of the belly softening back, settling, emptying as you exhale. Maybe 2 or 3 more cycles of breath here. And then letting your knees fold in towards your chest. That's it. And hold around your knees. You could just have a couple of quiet breaths here, or you could do a little bit of rocking from side to side. So as usual, this, sensing, asking yourself what would your body like and doing it. And the other thing you can do here is take your legs up to the ceiling and arms as well, if you like, and have a little bit of a shake out. And in a moment, we're going to be coming all the way over into standing. We're not going to be doing anything too dramatic in standing, but yeah, you can contemplate that prospect. You could, so from shaking your arms and legs out, you then might just want to come onto one side and have a few quiet breaths on your side. So whenever you're ready, coming over into standing. And that's it. So arriving on your mat. And first of all, maybe in standing, before you do anything, it's quite interesting. I was practicing earlier this morning, and when I coming immediately from lying into standing, sometimes I just felt very aware of the feeling of my feet on the floor. So the first thing, just arriving in standing, you could perhaps close your eyes. You could do a little bit of swaying from side to side. Just that feeling of how does it feel to be in standing after lying down. And it might be that you don't feel particularly rooted in the ground. If you don't, that's when it would be helpful to do a little bit of swaying from side to side. And we're going to do some more movements in a moment. But just first of all, giving ourselves time to settle and arrive in standing. So it might be, can you settle down for a moment? Can you have 2 or 3 big sighing breaths and drop your weight down into your footprints and let your shoulders drop. So let the breath come in. Let the breath leave you. Maybe one more time, let a breath come in. Let the breath go. And then we're going to come to moving a little bit more now. So come to swinging your arms, slapping your arms onto the sides of the body. That's it. And again, if you're still feeling that there's a lot, doesn't mean just that we've done a few movements on our backs, that your minds are perfectly quiet by now. So we're going to carry on moving, doing a couple of standing balances in a moment, but just little by little, hopefully starting to feel more in tune with our body. Okay, a couple more times with this one. Very nice. And then we'll do a little bit of, we can let go of that one, we can leave that one, and then we'll come to do a little bit of this reaching up into one arm and then the other. Reaching, shifting your weight into one side of the body, feeling long through your right side and your left side. And you can do a little bit more of this, but whenever you're ready, you're going to sweep down into a forward bend. If you know that your lower back's feeling a bit creaky and you need it to be better to support yourself with your elbows on your thighs, you can do that, especially as it's the first forward bend of the day, maybe, unless you've been up practicing already. Good. So letting your head go, you can let your arms go if that's okay with your back, and just see how it feels to be folding forwards in a forward bend. Weight in your heels, as you know, as much as possible. And this feeling of the spine and the head and the arms all tumbling forwards. And then letting a breath come in as you exhale, sinking down into your heels, rolling back up into standing. Very nice. And when you come back up into standing, just bring your feet a little bit wider apart so they're more the width of the narrow edge of your mat. And we'll come into these side lengthening movements where we bring one arm up and the other arm's heavy and relaxed. And you're going to move from side to side. Well, obviously you could stay if you wanted to, but I'm suggesting at this point that we move from side to side. We're fairly, in a fairly fluid way, letting the bottom arm hang, letting the top arm reach up, shifting the weight into the top arm side. So again, we feel that length down through the side of the body. So maybe once more to each side. I always completely lose track with these ones, but I don't think it matters too much. Once more to each side. And then release your arms. Give your legs a little bit of a shake out and bring your feet back so they're hip width apart. And then breathing in, you're going to take your arms wide, and exhaling, you're going to give yourself a hug with your right arm on top and drop your shoulders down away from your ears. And here you can come on into your eagle arms. Yeah, so this, your eagle arms, this favourite one. And what I'd like you to do, we're going to go forwards in this in a moment. What I'd like you to do first of all is, can you turn a little bit to the right and to the left, but without moving your pelvis? So can you turn the elbows and the shoulders and the head a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left, and see how that feels. And then in your own time, I always like to take my feet a bit wider, so you could step your feet a bit wider apart again, sink down into your heels, and then fold forwards with your arms in eagle arms. And once you're down there, you can either choose to keep your arms in eagle arms. There's that feeling of maybe extra weight that can be quite nice, lengthening out the spine. Make sure you let your head go. Weight well into your heels. And then whenever you're ready, you can let the arms go. Just sink into the heels, feel very floppy through the torso, the shoulders, that's nice, the head, the arms. And then let a breath come in as you exhale, sink down into your heels, roll back up into standing, keeping your head heavy. And once you're back in standing, step your feet back so they're hip width apart again. So I just think, I know there's a little bit of stepping the feet around, but I always find it much better for the twisting bit if we're standing with our feet under our pelvis. And then again, breathe in, take the arms wide. And as you exhale, give yourself a hug with your left arm on top. And drop your shoulders down away from your ears. And then on into your eagle arms when you're ready. So always remember, eagle arms, keep your shoulders dropped. And if it feels easy, probably not, you can always send the elbows a bit further away from your chest. And then a little bit of that turning. Leaving your pelvis where it is, turning the elbows and the shoulders and the head to the right and to the left. Not easy. And then stepping the feet a bit wider apart, sinking down into your heels, letting a breath come in, and as you exhale, folding forwards, sinking down into those heels. Make sure you let your head go, particularly if you're keeping your arms in eagle arms, make sure you let your head hang. Good. And that's it. Giving your weight, releasing your arms whenever you like, just sort of flopping down into your forward bend. That's very nice. And just feeling the heels sinking down into the floor. And then letting a breath come in, and as you exhale in your own time, rolling up into standing. When you arrive up in standing, have a little shake out. And we're going to come into a couple of standing balances with mudras. The first one we're going to do, we have done this one several weeks ago. It's this one where we wrap. So we're going to stand on our right foot first. This is more meditative, this balance. So it's the one where we bring the left foot around the back of the right ankle. The right hand comes up and the left hand comes down, and both hands are facing forwards. And this top hand, this Abhaya mudra, symbolises fearlessness. And this bottom hand symbolises forgiveness. I forget the name of the mudra. So yeah, so we're standing on the right foot. The right hand is up facing forwards. The left hand is down facing forwards. And our left foot is around the back of the right shin or calf or ankle. And just see how it feels to settle here. And with any mudra, we've got this awareness in our hands. And we're trying to soften as much as we can around the hand position. So let the shoulders drop. Good. Keep the centers of the palms soft. Let the breath flow in. Let the breath flow out. Good. If you've had enough, you come down, you have a little shake out. So in a way, I think this is quite, the sort of balancing aspect of this is perhaps more simple than other balances. So it maybe gives us this sense of, it's a helpful one perhaps to start with. So we're going to come onto the left foot now. So the right foot's going to come around the back of the left, sort of the left ankle, the left shin, the calf, and your left hand will come up and your right hand will come down, both palms facing forwards. And then again, this feeling that we're trying to soften around the mudras. So our shoulders can soften, our elbows can soften. We keep these soft centers of our palms. We let the breath flow in, we let the breath flow out. Very nice. Another breath or two there. And then coming down, having a little shake out. And I'm just going a bit nearer. So we're going to do tree pose in a moment, and we're going to do it with some different, we're going to do it with the lotus bud mudra, which is this one, where rather than the hands touching in prayer pose, we have this space between the centers of the palms, and the fingertips touch and the base of the hands touch. So I'm going to just move back onto my mat, because I'm going to show you, maybe just watch for a moment. And so this was just a little sequence I was playing around with mudras. So we'll come into prayer pose. We'll start with the lotus bud mudra here. And then what I wanted you to explore was taking your arms out to the sides and turning the palms up. So we come into handful of blossom mudra, pushpata mudra. We imagine we're holding flowers. And then from here, we're going to start to bend the elbows a little bit, but still imagine we have these handfuls of flowers. And then finally, we'll end up back at the lotus bud mudra. So anyway, I thought it was interesting just to do something different with the arms and the hands in tree pose. So we're going to be below the waist, very familiar, and above the waist doing some different things. So we'll come to stand again on the right foot, and you just decide how you're going to have your tree pose today. So it could be your foot on your ankle, just above your knee, or on your inner thigh. And then we'll start by bringing the hands into the lotus bud mudra at our breastbone. And just seeing how that feels. So It's a very beautiful mudra, the lotus bud. So this symbolism of a flower bud, a lotus bud. It's very beautiful, full of potential. And then from here in a moment, we'll take our arms wide to the sides, palms facing upward. At this point, we want to imagine that we've got handfuls of flowers in our hands. So our fingers are very soft, so we don't crush the petals. And then from here, how is it to keep the hands facing upwards, but to start to bend and drop the elbows so the hands come nearer to our shoulders. So imagine we're holding those handfuls of flowers. And then from here, we can gather our hands back into our beautiful bud mudra. And have another breath or two. Very nice. And then come down. Have a little bit of a shake out. Maybe just settle for a moment in standing before we try the other side. So how does it feel to have 2 feet on the floor? Maybe we feel all the sort of muscles have been a bit active in the right leg. And then when you're ready, bringing your weight over onto your left leg. And coming into tree pose on side 2 when you're ready. And so again, our starting point is the beautiful lotus bud mudra at the breastbone, at the heart. The space in between the palms, the fingertips touching, the thumbs touching, the base of the hands. And then from here, perhaps as we exhale, we take our arms wide and turn the palms upwards. We imagine we're holding handfuls of beautiful flowers. We have soft hands so we don't crush the petals. And then from here, how is it to start keeping the hands holding the flowers, starting to bend the elbows, bringing the hands closer to the shoulders. Good. And then from there, the hands can gather back into the lotus bud mudra once more. Another breath or two. Lovely, well done. Come down. Have a little shake out. Let's see, let's maybe fold into a forward bend after those and just give our brain, let's feel that feeling when we fold into a forward bend, we let the head go. It gives our brain a little holiday from that focus of balances. Feeling both heels rooted into the floor, just easing out the focus so the mind eases. And whenever you're ready, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. Rolling back up into standing. And when you arrive back in standing, you're just coming back to this swinging twist. And we're going to be coming on to a few more twisty things. And let's say balancing, but with 2 feet on the ground now, but it can still feel like a bit of a balance. So a little bit of, couple more times, swinging the arms to the right and to the left. And then on your mat, you're going to be, so from your feet being, settling your feet down into Tadasana, hip width apart and parallel, you're going to be stepping 1 foot forwards on your mat. So you're in this sort of walking pace. And we're going to do a little bit of shifting our weight forwards and back here. And seeing how that feels. So we want to have our hip width distance. We want to have both feet facing forwards. And we're going to shift our weight. Just to really feel our feet on the floor. And then you could carry on doing the same, but without moving your feet. So this funny one where we bend one knee and bend the other. And do this funny little walk where our feet don't move. And from doing all these things, eventually I would like you to settle down with your knees straight. And your pelvis suspended somewhere between the two footprints. We're going to do some little twists here where we're trying to keep the pelvis facing forwards. And then if you bring your hands onto your ribs, can you turn a little bit to the right and to the left? And then what about if you bring your hands onto your shoulders, turning to the right and to the left. And then hands onto the crown of the head, turning to the right and to the left. Trying to feel this, I suppose we have this separation in the middle where from the waist down we're very heavy and then feeling light higher up. And then pause in the centre, release your arms. And we're going to go into a forward bend here. So you can let your front knee bend. You could then rest down onto that front leg with your hands or your forearms, or you could fold all the way down over your front leg. Just flopping, that's it, flopping forward, seeing if your back heel stays down. Good, for a breath or two. And then from there, I'm just going to grab a tissue from the other room. Just come up into standing, back into standing when you're ready. And so come back up, maybe have a little shake out, and then we're going to swap sides. So I think that was with the right foot stepping forwards, wasn't it? So I'll get completely confused. So coming back up, and from Tadasana, feet hip width apart and parallel, step your left foot forwards. And then the same thing, a little bit of shifting the weight forwards and back. Now Otto has gone behind the laptop, so I'm really hoping he doesn't knock it over in a minute. Good. A bit of shifting forwards and back. Good, and then settling feet down. Bending one knee, bending the other knee. So we're still shifting our weight, but doing this funny one where we're not letting the feet move. Okay, I've now got shimmer style, sort of attacking the underside of the chair. They will hear some strange noises. So eventually you're settling down with both legs, both knees straight but not locked. Your pelvis suspended somewhere between the two footprints. Maybe take a moment feeling your hands on your pelvis and then let the hands come higher and come to these little twists. So with the hands on the low ribs, can we turn from the waist up to the right and to the left? With the hands on the shoulders, can we do the same thing? And then with the hands on the crown of the head. Good, can we do the same thing? Very nice. And then you're going to pause in the centre, let your front knee bend, and as you exhale, fold forwards, possibly pausing with your forearm on your thigh, or folding all the way forwards. And it may be that your chest comes close to that front thigh. So make sure your front knee is bending. Good. But that's it. Keep the back heel, if you can you keep the back heel sinking into the ground and the back leg quite straight? That's it. Very nice. Let a breath come in, and as you exhale, come back up into standing. So we're going to do a couple of little variations on this, going further into a twist and using the same foot position. So come back to Tadasana, hip feet side by side, as you know, and then step your right foot forwards again. So this time we're going to come back to that place where we've bent the front knee, the back leg is straight, we're leaning forwards onto this front leg. It could be with the hands, it could be with the right forearm. And then your left hand can come onto the back of your pelvis, and you're going to start to turn towards your back leg. So you're turning towards the left. But again, it's this feeling that we're just turning from the waist up. We can release the right arm to the floor. Fingertips might touch the floor, that arm might just hang. And the left arm could come up towards the ceiling. Good, very nice. A couple of breaths in this twist, trying to feel that your top arm is going up towards the ceiling. That's it, good, rather than back. And then flop forwards over your front leg again. Let your head go, let your arms go, let a breath come in, and then sinking down into your footprints, coming back up into standing. And then we'll do that on the other side. So come back into Tadasana, feet hip width apart and parallel, and step your left foot forwards. So again, for all of these, we just want this feeling of, when I say it's a bit like a balance, of being very steady below the waist. So make sure you've got your hip width sideways distance. So when you come forwards to this place, so our front leg is bent, our back leg is straight, we're leaning our hands or our left forearm onto the left thigh, that we feel steady. We feel steady, that we can settle down into the ground. And then we can start to turn. So the right hand on the back of the pelvis, we could release the left arm to the ground. We can take the right arm up towards the ceiling. So this feeling of being steady from the waist down, and then this twisting movement in the ribs and the shoulders. Make sure when you take that top arm up that the hand is soft and relaxed. That's very nice, good. Beautiful. And you can untwist and flop forwards over your front leg. Let your head go, good, very nice, lovely. We're going to then sink down into your heels and just watch me for a moment, because we're going to do a slightly different variation of this, adding in something. So it's slightly more of a little sequence. So what we're going to do here, first of all, is we're going to fold into the forward bend. Then we're going to start to bend the back knee. So we come all the way down into this delightful sprinting position, yeah? And then from there, we're going to reverse it and come back to here. But this time, I wanted you to see, when you come into the twist, maybe this hand could be flat on the floor. So you might need a block under it. So what's it like to, to twist, but with that hand down on the ground, possibly. You might feel you want to come up a bit higher, and that's fine, okay? So similar, but a little bit different, going all the way down through that sprinting position and then back up. So your starting point is feet hip width apart, stepping your right foot forwards. So think about how we can, the first thing we're doing is bending our right knee, folding forwards. And then from here, we start to bend the left knee. So obviously the left heel is going to come up all the way down into this sprint position, and see how this feels. It asks quite a lot of those back toes. And then from your sprint position, you're going to reverse that movement. So you start to straighten your back leg, keeping your front knee bent, and your chest can stay quite close to your thigh in your front leg. Now, can you plant your right hand on the floor? Have your left hand on your pelvis, and then start to turn towards the left again, but keeping the right hand planted on the floor like a third foot. And see how it feels to come into the twist, yes, in that way. That's nice, very nice. And then you might see from there, what's it like to come up onto your fingertips a bit higher? That's it, good, good, very nice. Very nice. And then you can untwist, flop forwards, sink into your heels, roll back up into standing. Lovely. And have a little shake out before we do side two. So feet back, hip width apart and parallel, stepping your left foot forwards. And then from here, folding, bending the left knee, folding forwards. So that's our first place to go to. Left knee bent, folding forwards. And then starting to bend the right knee. So you want to keep your left foot planted on the floor here. Yeah, so if the left foot cuts, if by taking your right knee down to the floor, your left heel comes up, then don't worry about taking the right knee down. That's fine. And then from your sprint position, rewinding back again. So start to straighten that back leg. Keep your chest close to your thigh and your front leg. And then can you plant your right hand on the floor? And I've got my right hand, I suppose, somewhere in front of my left foot, or slightly even a bit more into the centre. And then turning towards, I think I said right, it's left hand and left foot on the floor at the front. So ignore my left and right. And then turning towards the right. And then you could see, yes, from there, what about coming up onto your fingertips? How does that feel? Very nice. And then untwisting. Let your head go, exhaling, sinking into both heels, coming back up into standing. Good, and having a little shake out here. I'm just going to check. Okay. It's just about right for timings. So we're finally now going to come to dog pose. We're going to go down through a forward bend and dog pose and into child pose, and then do some things from hands and knees. So come towards the back of your mat. Bring your hands into prayer pose. We'll move down like we would for sun salute. So from here, let a breath come in as you exhale. Take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in. Drop your shoulders away from your ears and then rounding down into a forward bend. Enjoy 2 or 3 breaths in your forward bend and then big handprints walking on into dog pose. And see how this first dog pose feels. And of course, when you come into dog pose, you can bend one knee, you can bend both knees. And just a few breaths in dog pose, and then whenever you're ready, folding down. And I say into child pose, but if you're happier in kneeling or happier lying on your belly, then either of those are fine. So just somewhere where you can have a few quiet breaths for a moment. We can feel ourselves settled on the ground in child pose or kneeling or lying on the belly. We can let our shoulders soften. We can feel the movement of the breath somewhere within inside ourselves. And then whenever you're ready, coming onto hands and knees, and we're going to do some cat movements. We're going to do a bit of tail wagging. So you can, just see whatever you're drawn to doing first. So first of all, of course, finding yourself on hands and knees, feeling the contact of the hands on the floor. You might want to do a little bit of circling of the shoulders over the hands. And then whenever you're ready, a little bit of rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. Good. Rounding and dipping in cat, and also adding in a bit of tail wagging. Seeing how that feels. And of course you can combine the two if you so wish. And then from doing those little movements, maybe coming on into another dog pose. So tucking your toes under, rocking your hips back over your heels, picking your knees up off the floor and seeing how it feels to come into dog pose from the ground. And again, you can be bending one knee, bending both knees, having a few breaths in your dog. Very nice. So another breath or two in dog. And when you come out of dog, maybe just sit back over your heels for a moment and give your hands a little bit of a shake out, because we're coming back onto hands and knees. You can sit back over your heels. I think all of you are happy sitting down over your heels. And coming back onto hands and knees, we're going to lengthen one leg out behind us. And then we're going to do this one where we start to roll around on that back foot. So we can roll across the underside of the toes. We can untuck the toes and we can roll around a bit on the top of the toes. And just, yeah, exploring how we can move that leg when it's back behind us. And then from here, if we bring that leg out to the side, we get even more possibilities for movement as we can roll onto the heel. And of course, we can roll onto the underside of the toes, we can roll onto the top of the toes, and there's just a bit more movement here when our leg comes out to the side. And then from here, we're going to bring that leg further forward, so bending the knee now. So we're bringing our foot round into lunge on the outside of our hands. And we could then walk our back leg away a little bit more and just settle in lunge here. So we might have ended up now in a place that's a bit like what you're doing on your backs towards the beginning of class. And just have a few breaths in this lunge. Now, if you want to here, if you can lean down onto your hands, you could tuck your back toe under and lift your back knee off the ground. So if you so wish, add in that extra little bit of stretch and lunge. And have a breath or two here. Just make sure you're not bringing in tension in your shoulders. And then you can let your back knee come down again and maybe ease back out of lunge. So this one where we untuck the back toe, we just ease back a little bit. And then we're going to do the same thing all on the other side. So come back to hands and knees, lengthen the other leg out behind you. And start that movement, just having a little play around first of all with when you've got the leg back behind you, toes tucked under, foot flat, rolling across the top of the foot, rolling across the ball of the foot when the toes are tucked under, seeing how that all feels. And then the leg coming out to the side where we've got this more room for movement, rolling onto the heel, rolling onto the ball of the foot, seeing how all of this feels. Onto the top of the toes again, if we like. And then from here, we start to let the knee bend and we slide, walk the foot around to the outside of the hands. Now, if you can, it's nice to have the hands flat on the floor. You maybe can walk the back foot away from you, tucking those toes under. Having a few breaths here. And then yes, from here, if you like, you can lean into your hands, let the back knee come off the ground. Have a couple of breaths here. Now, this time as you come down from your lunge, well, again, it'd be quite nice to ease back out of lunge. So we can, ease back. You might want to bring your hands onto the outside of that front leg. So this one, we ease back, good. And then coming onto hands and knees, let's once more come into dog pose. So big handprints on the floor, tucking the toes under, exhaling, rocking the hips back and up into dog pose. And seeing maybe whether now in dog pose it feels a little bit easier to perhaps settle and focus on the breathing. In your dog, that's nice. And remember, of course, you can bend your knees as much as you like. So Francis, I've got a very good view of you here, and I think you could maybe bend your knees and send your pelvis back a little bit more. Yes, maybe, good, that's it, yes, and just release a little bit through the shoulders, that's lovely, good. And again, from this dog pose, whenever you're ready, fold down, child pose, kneeling, lying on your belly, for a few quiet breaths. Letting the shoulders settle and quieten. feeling the movement of the breath within you. And so if you're in child pose, you can slide your hands forwards on the floor and plant your hands down and come up into hands and knees. So you're in a longer hands and knees position. That's it. So end up, yes, so end up on hands and knees in a longer hands and knees position. And just start with a little bit of exploring how does it feel to be rocking your weight forwards. So we're heading towards a little bit of face up dog, but yeah, just go easy with it. How does it feel to be bringing the weight into the arms, to be bringing the pelvis forwards, to feeling the pelvis hang? And it might be that it would be helpful to add in some of those rounding, those cat-like movements. So you could, on hands and knees, tuck your toes under, round your back to the ceiling, rock your hips back over your heels. Let a breath come in and then traveling forwards, rounding your back to the ceiling. And then letting the pelvis go, untucking the toes. So we could try that a couple more times. So reverse the movement. Traveling back, tucking your toes under, rounding your back to the ceiling. Hips back over the heels, let the breath come in. And as you exhale, traveling forwards, rounding your back to the ceiling. When your shoulders are over your wrists, let your pelvis go. See how the lower back feels. Maybe you can let a breath come in the front of your chest. One more time, rocking back, toes tucked under, and then traveling forwards to face up dog. Now from this face up dog, I'd like you, if it feels fine, to go all the way into dog pose. Tucking your toes under, you can come through the other face up dog where we bring our knees off the ground and then hips back over the heels into dog pose. And particularly if you need to take the weight off your wrists, from dog pose we're coming into a forward bend. So whenever you feel that you want to bring your weight out of your hands, come into your forward bend. So all of your weight's in your feet. That's nice. And from your forward bend, we're going to be coming down through the squat. So from your forward bend, whenever you're ready, you can start to bend your knees forwards over your feet. And obviously it may be that your heels come up. If you want to grab something to go under your heels, you can do. Or you can let your heels come up, or it might be that you can just roll up the back of your yoga mat. So that gives you a little bit of support under your heels, and you can have a breath or two in your squat. And from squatting, we've had another couple of breaths there, we're going to come down into cobbler pose. And so we can sit where we are, but ultimately, so you can obviously bring your hands back behind you and gently lower your bottom to the floor and come into cobbler pose. And what I would like you to do is then swivel around so you're facing the middle of your mat, the long edge of your mat, because we're going to come into a little bit of pinwheel and pigeon. But perhaps it might be that you just want to lengthen your legs out for a moment, bounce your knees, and then we'll come back into cobbler pose. So coming back into cobbler pose. I realise I haven't pinned my video actually, so sorry about that. Okay. Coming back here into cobbler pose. And let's from cobbler pose go on first of all into pinwheel. So let one knee come on top of the other knee, let your top leg slide back. So we're going to spend probably a bit more time in pigeon pose rather than pinwheel, but let's do a little bit of circling here, seeing how it feels in pinwheel. And of course we can come into our pinwheel forward bend for a few breaths, because that's always a, hopefully, I like it, hopefully you do as well, a nice place to be. So turning towards this knee that's going out to the side, folding down over that thigh, having a few breaths here, seeing how it feels. Does it feel a nice settled place to be today? Can we settle and breathe and give the weight of our body down to the ground? And then walking your hands back up in towards you. That's it. So coming back up into pinwheel, and then we're going to let this knee slide back a little bit. So we're coming on into pigeon pose. So if we slide this knee back, so I tend to line up my thigh with the long edge of my mat. And then we can lengthen the other leg out on the floor. We may need to tuck our toes under. And then it's, as you know, it's really up to you. So if you want to stay a bit sort of lopsided in your pigeon to protect your front knee, if that front knee doesn't like the pelvis rolling over in pigeon, you can do that. Or if it's fine in the front knee for the pelvis to roll over, let your pelvis roll over. And letting yourself settle in pigeon. So perhaps in pigeon, the most useful place to be to start with is somewhere in the middle, resting on your elbows with your forearms on the ground. And seeing how that feels. You can be wiggling, rocking a little bit, tucking your toes under, rocking yourself up and down along the length of the mat, or you can rock a little bit side to side. It might be from here, you then want to go a little bit lower in pigeon, so bringing your forehead down to rest on the back of your hands or the floor. Or you can come a bit higher in pigeon, walking onto your hands. And the one I was thinking that we could do today, so if you're reasonably happy in pigeon coming onto your hands, we can try these little pigeon twists, which are the ones I'm quite keen on, so one hand stays in the center, quite far forwards, and then the other hand, we're just reaching back with the other hand. So perhaps as we reach back, we're touching our back leg, yeah? It's obviously easier, isn't it, on one side when you're reaching back with the same arm as leg, it's easier to touch that back leg. So this is touching the back leg, possibly with the foot down on the floor. There's also the variation where we bend the back knee and then we touch the back foot in this way. But look, I'm just offering all of these as options. Don't do them if they start to bring too much tension into you. But there's it's a bit like when we were catching our foot with our hands lying on our back. There's something that when we touch our hands to our foot that brings us into sort of more connection with the whole of our body. Whenever you've had enough in your pigeon, do roll out. Roll out. And let's take the legs long and wide. So when we've done pigeon on side 2, we'll spend a little bit longer in this wide sitting, because I know some of you quite like this. We won't spend so long this time. So just sort of get a taste of how it is. Let your legs lengthen out. And maybe just a sort of taste here of actually, is there any possibility for rocking on your sit bones? And I think, as I always say, I need lots of time for my legs to sort of settle into this. So let's come into cobbler pose before we do the other side of pinwheel and pigeon, and then we'll come back here, those of you who are rather keen. So come back into cobbler pose. We could do a little bit of rocking in cobbler pose. And let's have this as our little bit of being in cobbler pose. A little bit of rocking, shifting the weight, sit bone to sit bone. See, this is the one where you could rock all the way over if you were so inclined. And then we can do the other one, which is the sort of leaning. So then leaving our legs and pelvis heavy, coming to these side lengthening movements, if you like them. Yeah. Good. Okay, let's move on into pinwheel now. So other side, second side of pinwheel, so knee coming on top of the knee, bringing the back leg back, a little bit of circling, and then we will fold into our pinwheel forward bend. A little bit of circling and settling, and then folding forwards, hopefully into this sort of nice quietening place of pinwheel forward bend, which can feel nice for the lower back, feeling of lengthening through the lower back, settling forwards. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave. And then from the pinwheel forward bend, walking the hands up, back into pinwheel, and then moving on into pigeon. So we slide this leg back a little bit, perhaps the thighs lining up with the long edge of the mat, leaning our weight forwards over this front leg so we can lengthen the back leg back, tucking the toes under. And if it's fine for your knee, rolling your pelvis over. So we're trying to feel our pelvis is level. You could bring your hand onto the back of your pelvis to feel. And I will come have a little look in a moment. So perhaps in pigeon, that first few breaths on your elbows and forearms, just settling. I'll just see if I can see what I can see in pigeons. Pigeons, yes, very nice from what I can see. Make sure you let the shoulders soften. So as you all know, it's very easy in pigeon. We're so focused on what's going on in the pelvis and the hip joints that sometimes we can start to tense our shoulders a little bit. So as much as possible, letting the shoulders soften. And remember, you can go a little bit lower if you like, down onto your elbow, your forehead, or your forehead on the back of your hands. And you can also come up into pigeon, and you can do those little pigeon twists if you like. So remember, one hand stays in the center, and we see how it feels to reach back with the other hand. And so as we reach back, what can we touch? Can we touch our back leg? And it doesn't matter whether we can or we can't. But yeah, just be careful that if you're looking back can be really helpful, but make sure you're not overdoing anything in your neck. And if you like, of course, you can bend the back knee. And then as you reach back, can you touch your foot? And it might just be touching your foot, or it might be that you can catch onto your foot. And if you catch your foot, then you sort of pull back with your foot. And that sort of can lift you up a little bit more. Lift your body up. So yes, you may well have had enough pigeon, I can see, Francis. So then we're going to be rolling out onto that front leg hip. And we're going to be taking both legs long and wide in this one. I was trying to think of the Sanskrit name, which I can't even remember now. Upavista Konasana. So yeah, but I think all of you were quite happy in this one. So you probably do not need me saying, as I said to you so many times, make sure your pelvis is going, if you're going forwards, make sure your pelvis is also going forwards. But actually what we're trying not to do is let the legs also go forwards. We're trying to keep the toes pointing up to the ceiling. So this feeling that the legs are, very planted, the legs are not moving. And then this feeling that the pelvis pivots forwards and the spine. And so if I'm in this one and folding forwards, I like to do a little bit of, or upright, just a bit of sort of shifting from side to side, sort of weight onto one buttock, weight onto the other. So you can have another few breaths here, and then we're going to be doing a little bit of sitting. We're going to come back to the mudras we were using in our tree pose, and one extra mudra as well. And then we will, yes, do a little bit of a twist lying down after that. So if you want a few more breaths in this forward bend, you can absolutely be here with your legs wide. Otherwise, you can start to just think about how you're going to sit for the mudras and the breathing. So comfortable sitting now, so probably not with the legs this wide. Or if you do want your legs long, have a wall or a sofa or a bed behind you. So I think some of us, we did this sequence of mudras, but it's several weeks ago now. And just has this, this very beautiful theme of flowers and the natural world. And I think there's still so many lovely, lovely flowers out in, everywhere. So it's nice to take a moment to connect with that. So settling down, however, you know how is best for you to sit comfortably. And perhaps let's just focus on the sort of settling and sitting. So it could be a little bit of swaying or circling or rocking. And making sure whatever position you've chosen to sit in does feel that you can settle here. Settle without having to focus too much on your sitting position. And so we're going to start in a moment. Let's just rest the hands on the thighs. It can be palms up or palms down. And in a moment, we're going to start with the lotus bud mudra. But before we do so, closing your eyes and maybe 2 or 3 big sighing breaths, so we can let the shoulders come up a little bit as we breathe in. And drop them as we exhale. And then just letting the breathing quieten. And before we come into this first mudra, seeing if you can gather your attention into your breathing. Notice where you feel your breath most clearly within you. And then we're going to gather our hands into the lotus bud mudra. So the one we did in tree pose, so the heels, the base of the palms are touching and then the fingers touch, but we have this space between the hands. And we can settle this mudra at our breastbone. So I like to, I'm resting my thumbs against my sternum. Letting the shoulders drop. Letting the elbows feel heavy. And closing your eyes if you like, and gathering your attention into the hand position. So in a way, I think when we practice mudras, we just give ourselves some time to settle. For our body to settle, for our breathing to settle, for our awareness to settle with the hand position. So we can feel how the base of the palms contact each other. We can feel the contact of the fingertips and the thumbs, and that space between the palms. And we can take a moment to Perhaps reflect on the qualities that a bud represents. So potential, a potential for flowering, for beauty, for expansion, promise, hope. And then for a moment, we can open our eyes, bring our hands out in front of us, and let the bud open into a flower by stretching the 3 middle fingers away. So the thumbs and the little fingers still say pointing. So we let that bud open up into a flower. And you really stretch into the fingers. And then you just give your hands a little shake out, and then rest your your hands. So the back of your hands are on your thighs and your palms are facing up. So we're moving on into Pushpata Mudra. This is the handful of flowers, handful of blossom mudra. Where now, as we rest our hands on our thighs, we imagine that we're holding beautiful flowers in our hands. So the hands are soft and attentive. Perhaps we can smell the scent of the petals. I was just thinking of sweet peas. And again, we let everything soften around the mudra. So we let our awareness settle. We let the breathing settle. We let the body settle, the shoulders and elbows dropping, feeling heavy. The centers of the palms feeling soft. The fingers long and gently curving. Feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath leaving. Just before we move on from this mudra, maybe taking a moment to imagine what flowers we're holding. You don't have to name them, you could just imagine the colour, you can imagine the scent. You can imagine how the petals feel, that sort of damp, velvety feel. And then from here, we're keeping the right hand where it is, but we're dropping the left hand down and turning the palm upwards. So we're touching the left fingertips to the floor with the palm facing the ground. And this is our final mudra. This is a very, very beautiful mudra, earth touching mudra. So our right hand is facing the sky and our left fingertips are touching the ground. So we have this sense of the whole world around us, sky and earth, and ourselves in the middle of that. And so in this one, I like to focus on my right hand as I breathe in, that sense of receiving the air. And the left hand as I exhale, that sense of settling onto the ground, connecting with the earth as we exhale. Just a few cycles of breath here. Awareness in the right hand as the breath comes in. Awareness of those left fingertips on the floor as the breath leaves. And then finally, folding forwards, bringing both hands onto the floor in front of you, letting your body fold forwards. If you want to fold further and bring your forehead down, you can. You might need to let your bottom come up or change your position. And then from here, we're going to lie down. I'm going to talk you into a couple of little twisty things, and then we'll just do a little bit of quiet lying as well. So yes, settle, just to start with, just settle down on your backs, however you feel drawn to lying down, and let your body arrive on the ground. Yes, and as I can see some of you doing, maybe quite nice to let the hands come to rest on the front of the body and feel the movement of the breath in the front of your body. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And then if your legs are long, you're going to bend your knees and bring your feet to stand on the floor. And then you're going to come back to the movement we've done a couple of times today, letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And seeing how it feels to come back to this familiar movement. How does it feel in your body? And also, how does it feel inside of yourself? Can you settle with the sensations of this movement? And then pause in the center. Fold your right knee into your chest. And bring your right knee out to the side and bring your right ankle to rest on your left thigh, close to your knee. That's it. And then you don't, once you've got your ankle resting on your thigh, that's it, your ankle resting on your thigh, close to your knee. You don't need your hands then. And then you're going to come back to rocking on your standing foot. And see how this feels. That's very nice. So you can carry on with rocking here. But what you can also do, if you like, is pause in the center, pick your left foot off the floor and catch your hands around the back of your left thigh. So you're folding in this position. So maybe it feels a little bit like pigeon pose on your back. And have a few quiet breaths here. It might be even that when you fold it in, you'd like to rock a little bit from side to side. That's up to you. And when you've had enough here, you can then uncross your legs, take your legs up to the ceiling, give them a bit of a shake out. You can add your arms in if you like. And then just for a moment before we do the other side, lie long on the ground. Let your legs lengthen out. Let your arms rest onto the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Feel the length of your body on the ground. And then when you're ready, bend both knees, bring both feet to stand on the floor. And this time, fold your left knee into your chest. And then let the left knee come out to the side. Bring the left ankle onto the right thigh, close to the knee. That's it. Francis, you could probably slide that foot a little bit up your thigh, I think. Yeah, that's it. And then come into rock on your standing foot. So rocking side to side on your right foot. And seeing how it feels on this side. And it's really up to you how big or small you make this movement. But most importantly, keep it comfortable. So certainly at this stage in the class, we just want to be easing things out and settling, not pushing ourselves. And then if you like, whenever you're ready, you can pause in the center, you can pick your standing foot off the floor, you can fold your knees in towards your chest, keeping that left ankle on the right thigh close to the knee. Good, holding around the back of your right thigh, that's it. Good, let your, which leg is it? Make sure your right foot is relaxed. That's it, and floppy, that's it, Sally, good. A little bit of rocking, or you can just be folded in and a few quiet breaths. And then yes, whenever you're ready, uncross your legs, take your legs up to the ceiling. Just see how it feels to you. Yeah, have both legs up in the air, both arms. You can shake them out or whatever you like. And then settling down onto your backs. And I thought in our lying down, we can come back to, if we have our hands on the floor, we can come back to that earth touching mudra. So if you lie with your right hand facing up and your left hand palms down on the floor, we'll come back to this mudra, at least to start with, and then there'll be a chance to have your hands somewhere else if you like. So organising yourself, lying on your back. Your legs can be long or your knees bent. And have your right hand facing the sky, your left hand palms down facing the earth. And coming back to the breathing we were doing with the mudras. So as the breath comes in, we focus our awareness on the right hand, the upward turned hand, this sense of receiving the air, the life, the energy we need from the world around us. And as we exhale, focusing on the left hand, this sense of releasing, of giving, of connecting with the ground as we exhale. Let's just have three or four more cycles of breath with the hands in this position. So as the breath comes in, let your awareness rest with your right hand, the palm facing the sky. And as the breath leaves you, bring your awareness into the left hand, the fingertips and maybe the base of the palm touching the ground. So we can almost have that sense that the breath travels into us through our upward turned hand, and the breath travels out of us through that downward turned hand. And then for the last minute or so, it's probably nice to have your hands in a symmetrical position. So perhaps both palms up, both palms down, or bringing the hands onto the front of your body. and just letting yourself settle and rest and be. Take your time. You also may have things to do, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Thank you, Rosie. See you soon, please.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Just to